Hello, and thank you for tuning into this week's Mayor's Update. As always, we have a lot of important information to share with you here, so please feel free to share this video with your friends, family, relatives, and anyone else you think might find this information helpful over the course of the coming week. Earlier this week, at the Zoning Board of Appeals meeting, Growing Places, a food insecurity nonprofit in North Central Massachusetts, received their use variance to utilize the kitchen at Waterford Street School for their new distribution center. They take produce from different farmers in the area and prepare them for people who have a hard time affording food or need new nutrition ideas, and are quite active in the area. So I want to thank Ann Yeagle, their executive director, for getting that up and running. And also since then securing a substantial amount of grant funding that we'll be announcing later for renovations to the kitchen at Waterford Street School. They have a full license agreement to utilize that kitchen, so they are now fully moved into that section of Waterford Street School. So it's great to see the first leg of our community center up and running over in that location. For those of you who may be unfamiliar with what a license agreement versus a lease agreement is a license agreement is revocable at any time, and it is for a smaller amount of time than a lease. A lease can be a long term for up to X number of years, where a license is more on a month-to-month basis, and that can be terminated at any day with a day's notice. So there's a lot less legal protections with it, but that still allows them to utilize the space, be fully insured, and get their business up and running while we still figure out the ways to work around the Public Land Protection Act. So we do want people to know that Waterford is in full swing. The construction on the rest of the building is happening. And we're excited to be able to open the first part there. Once it's fully ready to open, we'll do its ribbon cutting. But for now, they're up and getting things set up, and I couldn't be happier to see that we've got the first leg of that piece already set and ready to roll. So thank you to everyone who was involved in that matter. Also earlier this week, the police department, Chief McAveen, Deputy Chief Maroney, and then Lieutenants Chesnowski and Arsenal held a public meeting over at the Gardner Police Department at the request of Ward 5 City Councilor Alec Durnall-Lowitz to discuss some of the issues that have come up in the city this year in terms of what the police department has been seeing. This came as a result of, in a very short period of time, we had the incidents at Subway and Planet Fitness and Gardner Spirits. So since all of those happened really quick to each other, we just wanted to, a couple of residents wanted to be able to, just see, is there an uptick in crime in the city? Is there, trends that we're seeing in our police calls that we're responding to? And we had about 10 people show up to that meeting. We weren't sure how many to expect. We set the room for 75, but with the 10 that were able to show up, it was a really good dialogue that we had. Deputy Chief Maroney pulled up some statistics that showed that we really are on par with the last 5 years of calls that we're receiving in the city. So it's not really an uptick in crime, but what it's been attributed to by the police department is an uptick in people posting on social media that they hear this is happening here and here and here. So you're seeing it a lot more. We are talking about making these a little more frequent, these community meetings with the police department, either on a quarterly or a biannual basis. So it'll be great to see all of that happening there. We also discussed the migrants that are being housed through the state's Emergency Assistance Shelter Program at the Super 8 Motel and the Colonial Hotel. These are individuals who are not illegal, they are not undocumented, they are actually vetted refugees through the federal system. And what that means is they're coming from very specified countries: Haiti, Nicaragua, Cuba, Venezuela, and another country that I can't remember off the top of my head while we're filming this right now, that are, the federal government has designated, if you are in this country, the situation is dangerous enough that you can come to the United States as a refugee through this process. And these are people who came in through that process. Now, Massachusetts, being the only right to shelter state in the Commonwealth, has kind of influxed that here. And that's why we're seeing the, influx of these migrant populations coming statewide, not just here in Gardner. Marlborough has some, Fitchburg, Leominster. There's people looking all over the place for housing that work for the Executive Office of Housing and the Governor's Office. And Governor Healy has said that by the end of October, we will reach our capacity limits for what the emergency shelter system is able to offer. But that came up as a topic of conversation at this meeting under the questions of, now that we do have these refugees and migrants living here, are we seeing an uptick in 911 calls? Are we seeing upticks in crime? Do we have anything to worry about these? And the answer is no. Chief McAveen actually pointed out that the number of calls that we get to the Super 8 Motel has actually substantially dropped from what it used to be before they had a migrant shelter there to what we have now. And the majority of calls that we have going to that location right now are actually medical calls. In fact, two individuals gave birth or went into labor there, and we had to pick them up and take them up to the hospital so that they could give birth at the hospital. So there's really just medical calls that are going in response to the migrants that are living there. But we did have a substantial conversation about, the fact that most of these migrants are from Haiti. Some of them are from other locations in the United States that ended up in our shelter system before the influx of foreign migrants came in. And really that it really hasn't caused any public safety issues for us. So we just want to alleviate those concerns by reiterating here, because it was a topic of conversation that came up at that meeting. And I look forward to seeing what comes up the next time we have one of those meetings. And I want to thank Scott McGee and his wife Jackie McGee for reaching out to Councillor Darnell Lauritz to really set that up. So thank you to everyone who was involved, and we'll see what happens at the next one of these that we have. The assessor's office is working on the process for the 2024 fiscal year, the current fiscal year we're in. If you remember last year, we had a situation where values get certified around this time, different property designations get certified around this time as we lead up to eventually setting the city's tax rate for the current fiscal year and our supplemental budget. Those processes have all been completed. However, the supplemental budget and the tax rate hearing won't be held before the City Council until November 20th, just mainly because the City Clerk's office oversees all of those processes, and with the double election coming up on November 7th, we want to make sure that there aren't any extra stresses that could cause any inherent mistakes that might come up as on accident. So the 2022 qualified sales are what goes towards the valuations that we have here in the city for 2024 under state law. We have to go back to how house sales were going in 2 years prior. So we're going back to fiscal year 2022, and that's what's determining our valuations for this year, how the housing market did 2 years ago. And I do want to say that those are qualified sales. So they have to be arm's length sales, not one LLC to another LLC and so on from there. But those sales have to be certified by the Department of Revenue, and those sales have been certified and are on the assessing department's website. The assessed values that are being proposed for the fiscal year have also been certified by the Department of Revenue, and those are also on the city's website. New growth, which is all property that we didn't anticipate being taxable when the budget was originally adopted by the City Council in June, has also been certified at about $350,000. We budget $250,000 that we're going to expect to get every year in the budget with our revenue side of things when we put the budget forward. So we have about $100,000 extra on that one. So we'll be making a proposal for a supplemental budget to go before the council at the end of November as well. All of these things need to be done by the end of December. So we're actually on a really great track. I think this is the earliest we've ever had this process completed. So I want to thank our city assessor, Christine Kumar, and our city auditor, John Richard, for all the work that they're doing to really compile all of this information together. We should have what the proposed tax rate for the fiscal year will be, I'm going to guess by the end of the month, but we'll really make sure that we get all of that information out to you as soon as possible. The public hearing that will take place before the City Council will be determined whether we have a single rate or a split rate, which means that we tax all properties in the city with the same tax rate, or if businesses get taxed at a higher rate than residential properties. That's what a split tax rate is called. The Board of Assessors has voted to recommend to the City Council that we continue using a single tax rate to be more business friendly here in Gardner, and that is something that we're going to be putting forward as a proposal from my administration as well. But again, all of those processes will continue, and we'll keep you in the loop as those move forward. But if you'd like any preliminary information on that, it is available on the City Assessor's website. The following stroll is coming back to downtown Gardner. Businesses have started to put their pumpkins in their windows. So if you are interested in taking your preschool aged or younger children trick-or-treating next week, Friday, September 27th from 10 a.m. to noon, all through the downtown and the businesses that have a pumpkin in the window and in all of the offices here at Gardner City Hall. So it's going to be a fun time for everyone. It's one of the best times that we have here at City Hall to see all the little kids in their costumes and just having fun and enjoying what's going on. So again, Halloween stroll next Friday, October 27th from 10 a.m. to 12. Regular Halloween trick-or-treat for everyone else will take place on Halloween Day itself, Tuesday, October 31st from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. The Chamber of Commerce is holding a meet and greet for all candidates for local office here in Gardner for the November 7th election this coming Thursday, October 26th from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. here in Perry Auditorium. Now, when you use a public building for political events like this, there are certain things that cannot be done. No candidates can solicit for funds in a fundraising way. There's certain things that can't be put up. But everything here has been cleared with the Commonwealth for what the Chamber of Commerce has planned. It's just a meet and greet, and each candidate is allowed to have a booth set up around the walls of the City Hall auditorium. So if you're interested to get to know who's on the ballot and who's running for what this year, again, this Thursday from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. in Perry Auditorium. And just as a reminder too, that at the upcoming November 7th election, there is a ballot question with regard to the city charter. These should be arriving in your mailbox soon. We went over these in last week's update, but it is the full pamphlet with all of the information on the city charter ballot question that's been put forward. The deadline to register to vote for the upcoming November 7th election is October 28th, and the deadline to register to vote by mail, if you would like to vote by mail, is October 31st. So if you're looking to vote by mail for this upcoming municipal election, or you haven't registered to vote yet because you've either moved or you've recently turned 18, you need to do those very soon. So remember to do that in the upcoming week. All of those forms can be found on the City Clerk's website and on the Secretary of State's website as well. And if you go to the Secretary of State's website, it's actually an online fillable form that they'll then forward to the City Clerk's office here. So they've made it easier to fill out that way as well. This month is designated on a couple of different things here. It is Breast Cancer Awareness Month and Liver Health Awareness Month, as well as Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So we've had 3 different ceremonies here in Gardner to recognize those issues that are facing members of our community. So thank you to all of those organizations who put together those proclamations for us so that we can really, make sure we're reaching out to every population that we have here in the city. And just as a reminder that the St. Paul's Harvest Festival will be taking place this coming Saturday, October 21st, from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. over at St. Paul's Episcopal Church on Cross Street. The Haywood Healthcare Healthy Harvest 5K is taking place on Saturday, October 28th, next week in the morning. More information on how to register for that can be found on Haywood Hospital's website and social media platforms. And then later on in the evening on the 28th, we have the new induction ceremony for the Gardner High School Hall of Fame inductees for the athletic program. So thank you to Mike Richard for putting that program on. I just want to close by saying a very special thank you to the Air Force National Guard. A couple days ago, I was invited to go on a fly-along refueling mission for the F-15s out of Barnes Air Force Base out of Westfield, along with the mayor of Westfield and the town administrator of Rutland, as well as a couple of members of both of those administrations. It was really neat. It was done through a program to help local government employers see what our members of our National Guard are doing when they get called out for service and can no longer work in our offices and the positions that we have working in the city, and part of their employer appreciation program. So we went on a 4-hour mission on a fuel tanker refueling the F-15s as they did their training exercises over the Atlantic Ocean. So I want to thank them for inviting me along for that, and for the work that our National Guardsmen in the Army National Guard and the Air Force National Guard are continuing to do. We're a proud employer of several members of the Guard here in the city of Gardner, and looking forward to seeing how we can continue to support those Guardsmen and their families as they serve our country with everything else that's going on in the world. That concludes this week's Mayor's Update. As always, if there's any information that you have questions on, you can always feel free to contact my office at any time, and we'll get that to you as best we can. Thank you very much, and I look forward to speaking with you again next week. Have a great day.